Yo, what up? It's Donut, and you tuning in to Illuminati News. And we are here with David Gosselin, Paranoid American. Oh my goodness, we're gonna have an amazing show. But as you hop up in here, please smash that like button, share the video out. We're gonna be covering the ancient cults of the Dark Maga. What is Dark Maga? Who is this character, Elon? And where is the world heading? This is going to be an awesome show. We're going to go over pretty much the power behind the politics. I guess the hidden powers, which would mean the occult powers, because occult simply means hidden. But we are here with David. What is going on, David? It's great to see you.
Thanks for having me, Donut. What's up, guys?
I got you right in the middle, like a sandwich.
Like an Oreo.
We are in interesting times.
Yes. And we did a podcast over on the Patreon that I'll release next week. But it was right when Trump got elected, I think, and we were going to be talking about the Dark Maga. What's your thoughts right now with all that? And kind of tell the audience, if y'all haven't seen the video that we did on the Luciferian cults, the Mithra, going back to Mithra, connected to the Esalen Institutes, and the article you wrote, everybody got to go check out that video. It's nicely edited and all that. But yeah, maybe introduce yourself and what we're going to be talking about a little bit as well, or what's on your mind.
Yes, I'm a poet, writer, researcher, translator, and my main Substack is Age of Muses, where we cover a lot of culture, do historical deep dives, but also focus on original creative work. Like over there, we have like a short story, The Last Man of K. We have a Journal of Arts and Letters, New Lyre magazine, which I have over here. And we're going on our 6th issue. So yeah, we're really focused on putting out good, real culture, high culture, we could call it, classical culture. What does that look like today? Timeless culture, because we all agree, I think, that the culture has sort of declined. And at the same time, that can be, there's sort of a recognition that things need to change so people are open to new ideas. So I think we're in one of those very interesting times where there is an openness, but that's also when the magicians, right, the image makers can always strike and try to offer up something that will kind of throw people off the path and just entrap them in something new that's really just old, right? But it's just repackaged as new. And it's really just about appearances, So when I think Dark Maga, we're really talking about the same kind of the very long tradition of you could say, the dark magicians, the dark sorcerers, who know how to manipulate and formulate images to elicit the right feelings and get people to emote with certain things that may be good, but there's something, you have to go beneath the surface of that image to really see what it's about. And, like Elon, for example, I had this quote here I saw, accelerating starship development to build the Martian technocracy. So Elon's family, they were involved in this whole technocracy Inc. Government idea in Canada, even. My friend Matthew Arrett has done a great deep dive on Elon Musk as the Tesla 2.0, where Elon is really just a front for this kind of new technocratic overhaul of the, you could say, the woke system, or the left sort of board cube thing, where everybody's kind of saying the same thing and being assimilated, where it's really creepy and they're all just talking about diversity and equality. And this is like the flip side of the dialectic, right? Where if you look at Musk or Peter Thiel, who's much more ideological and more of a philosopher, it's really the idea that, democracy has failed, right? The idea that everybody's ideas are just as good as everyone else's is false. And so you need a new class of experts, of people who of excellence, who will be able to govern and sort of take society out of the crisis. But it's a lot of they're giving you false solutions, right? Like one of the interesting ones with the whole technocracy idea, Peter Thiel has supported this idea of a network state. So you'll have like Bitcoin cities, you have a lot of individual cities and societies that are part of, you could say, the USA, but they're all quite independent and doing their own thing, at least at the surface. But there's really this goes back to the idea of cybernetics and cybernetic governance, where you have maximum centralized control through maximum decentralization. So the left hand and the right hand, everything seems to be doing something different. But part of how they control is that because everything is so atomized, you have multiple financial systems and segregated economies, like Silicon Valley, right? It's kind of like its own country kind of thing. And so just imagine that, but times 100. And you throw in some space stuff. We're going to build a Martian colony. And that's part of mankind's self-actualization and reaching new higher levels of consciousness. These are like theosophical themes, of ascendance and transcendence. So these ideas can be good, right? In the sense of, yeah, space exploration, science, and all that. But then you have have you guys ever seen the movie Elysium?
No, but shout out to Matt Arrett though, for sure, if he's watching.
Yeah, like Elysium is a cool movie because man has gone into space. Earth is like the Hunger Games, sort of, destroyed post-industrial civilization. And then you have all the rich people who are in this nice big floating spaceship, orbiting spaceship. You got cancer, okay, you just jump in the machine, boop, you're cured in like 5 minutes. So it's a very Wellesian idea where mankind is basically split up into like two different races, two different civilizations, two different classes of human beings. And you have all the transhumanist themes. You got the equivalent of Neuralink. So then you have that, right? So can we distinguish between the two? A truly scientific civilization that sort of keys off the best of the Western intellectual, scientific, and cultural traditions, and this weird transhumanist, technocratic, theosophist-infused worldview of governance.
Yeah, and even Peter Thiel, his capital Mithril, right? Sounds a lot like Mithra.
Yeah.
And the other one's Palantir. And our last video, we were going over how important Mithra cults are. I mean, this is where the skull and bone symbolism comes from. This Peter Thiel guy is who created Bitcoin, in my opinion, with Elon. Elon seems to be just one of the images of the image maker, if that's a good way to put it, how you were talking about it. But on these top levels, talking to a lot of my friends in the crypto space, because we're seeing like Bitcoin and crypto skyrocket, and this is all connected to AI. This is all connected to autonomous vehicles and the new, like, where we're heading in all the smart cities. Peter Thiel is like an arm of the military, and that's what Gotham is. That's what Palantir is. They're running these AI algorithms on everybody. Elon purchasing X, purchasing Twitter. It manipulates everyone emotionally through the images it shows us in our feed, which is planned out weeks and weeks ahead of time. We've been studied like a petri dish on such a high level. And when the whole world was locked down, then they open it back up, and then they introduced the Chat GPT, which is not the model that they're using. We're using a different chat GPT. We can't even get a full Rothschild's name in chat GPT if we try to ask it what is the full Rothschild name. But on these high levels, these guys, they're doing wild, like crazy, like partying. They're going back to these Eleusinian mystery cults. Like we think that they're just playing video games and called Diablo and all that, but really they're doing some, like, they're partying. They getting down and funky. They're having, like, pretty much, I don't even want to say it on camera, but they're doing, I guess, same sex attracted orgies. I guess that's a good way to put it. Um, they're doing wild shit.
Yeah, well, these are. I mean, last time I think we talked about like Satanism. These are cults of power, right? And it's all
Right.
about and cults of power. They have access to secret knowledge, right? They have access to the mysteries, right? These were the ancient. This was the idea of the ancient mystery cults, right? Whether the Gnostics, the Mithra cults, uh, which were all Neoplatonism was kind of floating around everywhere. And so the idea was that you could have a sort of, it was about experiential knowledge and sort of going through the hierarchies of being. This is an idea of Plotinus, where they take real ideas and they sort of pervert them, always kind of giving them an occult sort of spin, where instead of it being intelligible, and yes, the man's mind, the microcosm and the macrocosm, the universe, are coherent. Man has an ability to sort of investigate the principles governing the universe. And that's how he's able to make discoveries. That's how he's able to develop technologies and stuff. Science, uplift the standard of living, right? Take everybody out of serfdom. So you have that, but then you have an idea of accessing this kind of higher gnosis, where like today it's very popular, aliens, right? Whether it's gnosis from aliens or the secret wisdom of ancient civilizations, or its transcendence, technological transcendence, all of it is saying, it's like it's presenting you, that's the end. The end is this self-actualization, this manifesting of consciousness. These are all theosophical ideas, and they're, in a sense, they're very different from, say, the traditional Judeo-Christian or Western paradigm, where the idea is every individual is in the image of God, and has a divine spark. But at the same time, as the Psalm, I think 43 reminds us, put not your faith in princes or in the Son of Man. The Gnostics are kind of the opposite, right? You put your faith in an experience, in a person, right? In a magician, in a king, and they're going to save you, right? They have access to the higher knowledge of the gods. Elon Musk's a genius, right? You hear this all the time. Elon, he's such a genius, just blows all our minds, right? So we should just listen to him when he's talking about privatizing the entire defense and space uh, uh, sectors of the economy, where they're going to have even less oversight and be in the hands of these elite groups than if they were government institutions. And of course, this is where people get upset, because it's like, yeah, but the government's corrupt and da da da. But what we're saying is there's a dialectic there, right? They're sort of playing on the disappointments of people and not knowing how our system got corrupt in the first place, and then they're giving you a solution, right? They're creating the problem, and then they're giving the solution, right? COVID was bad. People lost faith in the government, understandably so. But now it's like you don't trust the government for anything, so we should privatize everything and put it under the direction of like the Mont Pelerin society. Is that really better? Is that really different than Wall Street and the occult banking syndicate running the economies in society?
Wow. Yeah, and then you got um Tucker Carlson getting the demon attacks, which I think his alien story wasn't working, so he switched it for his audience. And yeah, that's wild. So I got all your links down below, David. Everybody make sure to go subscribe to David's Twitter and Substack. I learned so much from you, from Matt, Cynthia, and you were recently on. She's becoming like my favorite podcast right now. Um, on Courtney Turner's podcast, Plato versus Aristotle, and you brought up something really interesting. As Paranoid American and I have been working on this comic book where we're building something, writing something. It takes like so much effort in creating something. And then once we start making moves and creating something, then all these socialists come out of the woodworks and start just like getting mad and that you're making something.
Right.
And I and the I'm calling them socialist just because I know it pisses them off, but I think that they actually are though, like they're thinking because they don't think of like creating. Like there's this
Well,
one.
it's like this isn't from the state. The state didn't assign this to me. What is this? Like, what authority do you have to produce something? You're not the state. That's, I think, what's going on, like deep down in the reptilian brain.
Right.
Yeah, and but you said something that kind of it was really helpful because I heard it and it got me to rise above the haters and keep on creating and keep on pushing. And you were just bringing up this concept of evil, and evil can't create.
Right.
Evil imitates. This guy that was dissing me, he steals all my content. I've even had people like come up to me because the guy can't create. So when you were talking about that on this podcast, I just want to let you know that your words like motivated me to keep on pushing. So thank you. Maybe you could talk about that if you even remember saying that.
Yeah. No, and that definitely it's hard to being an independent creator is very challenging. And like a lot of things that I thought, yeah, I'm going to do this is going to just take me a couple of days or a couple of weeks. Fast forward a couple of years, and everything's now starting to come together. We have all sorts of infrastructure, publications, recordings, regular new content, and like a growing pool of very talented writers. But it all takes a lot of time. And evil, I mean, we've talked about this. We talked about that in the last podcast with Courtney, and I'm doing a series of deep dives that are coming out very shortly. The first one is almost done: Magic, Myth, and Archaic Mind Control, and it's going to be the secrets of the Renaissance. And it's all about how the magicians, the legacy of evil is imitation. They're not really creating anything. And in the same way, the magician is not so much about having genuine knowledge as being able to imitate and create appearances, right? To know little tricks, to fool people into thinking that you have access to a higher level of knowledge, which once the person believes that, right? Once they believe the shaman, the medicine man, that's when they're ready to change, to accept new ideas. I mean, this is the Manson cult, right? These are the MK Ultra experiments in cult creation, right? Trauma, mind control, and all that. You have to get the person's unwavering faith. And how do you do that? Well, you have to do things that seem like nobody could do that without having some kind of secret knowledge or talent. So the occultists will study science, right? In the Renaissance, they studied mathematics, they studied all these things. They wanted to know what the latest technological breakthroughs could be, but it's just so that they could assimilate it and, advance the interests of the empire, right? Advance the interests of the oligarchy. So you have to stay on top of science. You have to stay on top of the creative world because you always have to be there to introduce an imitation or a substitution when there is something of genuine quality or originality. And you flood the field with this stuff, right? You flood the field with imitations, and then the average person, right, everyday people, who has time to really do a deep dive and go down all the rabbit holes. That's why shows like this are important, right? It's important. We do have a lot of different independent creators that are extra savvy and creative so that they can have their independent operations and get real ideas out. Always aware, right? Appreciating that, yeah, the bad guys, all they can do really is imitate, and they put so much work into these creating these appearances. I don't think Elon Musk really runs anything. And I'm
No, he
convinced
doesn't.
now after reading Matthew Ehret's long series of essays. I wouldn't be surprised if he's only playing Diablo. Honestly, these are the kind of it's kind of like Newton as well. They create these personalities, and he's just sharing memes all the time. Elon Musk, right? They're using meme magic. He loves to be in the limelight. People have noticed that. He's with the Trump circles. You know, there's been jokes even that Elon Musk is like he keeps bothering the campaign, like he's photo bombing and stuff, because they need to make it look like this is all theirs, and they are trying to infiltrate it. And clearly there are all sorts of moles and stuff, and they're trying to sell the Trump administration on this Argentinian Malay libertarian model where we're just going to like completely erase most of the government and put it into, again, private institutions, the hands of the same occult banking syndicate, military industrial complex. And they're just, most of their time is going into creating these appearances that will get people to go along with it and not make those crucial discernments, you know, about what is really motivating these people. They're saying the right things, right? The magician, they know how to say the right things, but yeah, if we have to go beyond the general rhetoric and we can look at their actions, and it's yeah, it's a very different story.
Yeah, there's a bunch of occult stuff going on. Paranoid, what's up? I think Paranoid was gonna say something.
Well, yeah, a couple of things that came out. I don't want to stop the flow here, but right when we first started talking, David, you mentioned the cybernetics, and this. I mean, if you keep rewinding the dial backwards on cybernetics, you come up with a guy named Wolfgang von Kempelen, I think, and he created a bunch of different things that were very innovative at the time. One of them was a voice synthesizer where you could just blow air through this diaphragm and then change the shape of it, and he was able to reconstruct human voice. But this was in the 1760s, and this is something that a lot of people think only started maybe with Eliza or in like the 50s or through the 70s. But he also had something going to what you were just talking about, putting all of this effort and resources into the impressions. And man, I just because I randomly saw the movie The Substitute again recently, one of my favorite movies of all time. But in the movie, they keep repeating this phrase that power perceived is power achieved. And that's sort of what this whole premise is with what Elon Musk is doing. But that same guy, Kempelen, that made the voice automation machine, he also made something called a Mechanical Turk. And the Mechanical Turk was this little it was supposed to be a chess playing automaton from the 1700s that could beat all these people. It even played Napoleon Bonaparte, it played Benjamin Franklin, it beat all these people. But what they found out later was just a person sitting inside of the booth making it look like the robot was moving around. But so much effort was put into making this thing look like it was this next level technology. This is sort of an analogy to what I see Elon doing a lot of the time, where he's just like he's hires someone in a little box to go through the motions and make it look like what he's working on is this next level. But there is that next level, and just like Donut was saying, that we have this consumer grade chat GPT that gets a million filters on it. That concept of where ChatGPT came from, these neural networks, these were established in the 1940s in these cybernetic conferences by the Macy Foundation. And in those initial 1940s cybernetic conferences, they already had technology that could solve mazes, like a rat running through a maze, but it was all technology based. And this again is just showing that almost 100 years ago, like at least a good 80 years ago plus, they already had these neural networks. They already had this level of technology. But again, it's the perception. Like there's so many flaws in it with this solid state intelligence, but all these companies are kind of glossing over a lot of that, and they're just presenting these mechanical Turks over and over, except the mechanical Turks we're seeing now are far more complicated than a little dude sitting inside of a box. So you can't really pick it apart and see that. But it does seem that there's going to be a bubble at some point when someone's like, wait a minute, this isn't what you've all been selling us that it has been. And that kind of is Elon Musk's role, is that he ushers in this new technology for maybe a crowd that originally might not have been as receptive to it, but now that he's seen as like a right hand man of, you know, the guy that has all this other idolatry going on, now he can slip in some of these, what I would argue were cybernetic conference objectives that were established 80 years ago.
Yeah, and that's a brilliant example, right? The Mechanical Turk. That's a great metaphor for everything we're kind of seeing here. Yeah, the whole AI thing, which again is more of this same kind of Gnostic stuff, where there's really the notion that human beings our brains are limited, and the robots are just more intelligent than us, and we sort of have to yield to the wisdom, the oracular wisdom of the cyborg. You know what I mean? Like that's what's going to decide what the ideal society is, the ideal governance structures. And it's, you know, people go again with the libertarian stuff. You could say, okay, they're not telling us how to like run our families and da da da. But if they totally take over the systems of power, economic production, and they sort of, if you just have economic devastation, well, people are not really going to have much power anyways. So if we're just putting our faith in these technocrats and their wacky Gnostic ideas of governance, then you're going to get the same thing, if not worse, you know? So yeah, this Mechanical Turk, that's brilliant. Yeah, I'm familiar with that. It's always that. Going back to even the myth of Daedalus and Icarus, you know, he could make the statues move. Or Archytas, he had the wooden pigeon. Archytas was a real, like, genuine, real deal mathematician, geometer. But the point is that, so these mechanical tricks, right? The magicians love that. The occultists love that because it just sort of encapsulates their whole outlook of how do you master these sort of these tricks and mathematical knowledge and all that to sort of manipulate people's perception. So but as long as science doesn't get out to the general population, as long as a real classical education and scientific education is not sort of instituted, where then you have kind of unbounded creativity. You can't really control the environment. If people are allowed to learn and work together in the natural way that creativity happens, scientists are in dialogue, people are exchanging ideas, and you don't have this super complex cybernetic system of peer review, for example. I was speaking with Matthew Crawford just a few days ago on his podcast, and he gave the example of his wife, who's in a very specialized field of science, where for each one of these subfields, there's maybe 10 people. They're the experts on that. And he was just saying, if the occult banking syndicate, these types of networks, if they just own the guy who is the peer review for that specialized subsection, they have so much leverage, because then they can decide what ideas are allowed to advance and which ones are suppressed, or they can promote false ideas or incorrect notions that will just lead people off the path. So that's that's always there. Like that's really how they work. But it just shows that they rely on appearances. And that's why this higher level of discernment and appreciating this legacy of the magicians and the imitators, I mean, it's hard to unsee, right? Once you see all this stuff that they're doing, gothic Maga, as he talks about, as if like the current board cube, left woke board cube thing, as if it's sort of medieval technocracy where people are afraid of getting bitten by a ghost, like Tucker Carlson, right? Where it's just mass superstition, as if that's any better, right? If you go to bed and you're afraid you're going to be attacked by a ghost, and you have a
You're
priestly
getting
class.
spanked, vigorously spanked. No, I don't think.
It was kind of genius for him to do this, though, because it allows Tucker Carlson to court an entirely new demographic with very little investment. He can do one single interview, make this one wild claim that kind of comes out of left field in a way, and go back to normal life. And now he can have this one thing that he just said in passing appeal to a larger group than he started out with before this happened. And he's got an entire life of other credentials that sort of work against this type of claim. So he can sort of have his cake and eat it too in a way. He can court any audiences he wants at this point because of the amount of reach that he has and the different people that he can collaborate with and have these interviews. You can kind of custom, just the same way that Hillary Clinton was like, oh yeah, I keep hot sauce in my bag all the time. She only had to say that one time on one audience. It didn't work in her favor because it was so disingenuous. But if you can pull it off and make it seem genuine to the audience that you're catering to, then this is why not cast that net.
Yeah, and you can see though what they're like, because right, there's an idea of emphasizing sort of the importance of spirituality, right, and faith. Again, put not your faith in princes or the Son of Man. That people have to believe in something beyond just worldly power and achievements. But then, so people will agree with that. That's the first part of the induction, right? You say something that you've introduced a new image, right? You've introduced demons and supernatural forces. Then you say something that everybody agrees with, that yeah, we shouldn't just sort of put our faith in politicians or a good economy. And then they say something at the end. There's a new suggestion though, and in this case, it's demonology, right? It's literally Theosophical demonology that's meant to break people's brains, right? We were talking about that last time, Donut, where the mystery schools, the way they operate, like we said with Manson as well, same thing about transcendence. And, he read his Bible was Stranger in a Strange Land by Heinlein, who was a high level military intelligence operative and famous fiction writer, one of the original sci-fi writers. And he has this whole Martian civilization idea, but then the second half of the book, it's a sex cult, right? And it's all about all the members of the cult, right? They're having sex with the guy, and they can achieve transcendence, and they're getting superpowers, right? They have superpowers. So
that was Charles Manson's book that he read?
Yeah, the members of the Manson family thought that they were going to develop superpowers and achieve this higher transcendence as they embraced all the peace and love stuff, right? They had water sharing rituals, which was taken from that book because water was very rare. So water was the thing that people would share, and that was a sacred right. And so you do that, you introduce something esoteric, and once people swallow that, you have them, right? Because now they've allowed something that is not intelligible, that they can't sort of reconstruct in their mind as a discovery that they can sort of prove or communicate to someone else. And you start to organize the whole tribe around that. You break their brains, because now why wouldn't they believe you for other things as well? They're invested now.
I was seriously gonna put the Charles Manson tattoo on his head, the X And it didn't look good, so I took it off. So that's funny. And also Project Mars. This book was written by Werner von Braun, way before Elon was even born, about a group named Elon to colonize Mars, as if these are just characters. And I know it's connected to this guy, Paranoid. You told me to bring this up
Oh, we were
last
gonna
night.
mention this last night, and we went off the rails in a good way. The connection here was that Werner von Braun book made a lot of references to canals on Mars and all these existing structures on Mars, and all of those claims came directly from that Lavelle guy, who's also the one that's attributed
Oh,
to discovering, in very thick quotes here, the planet Pluto, or it considered as just being another ninth planet. He's got his own crater on the moon, I believe. This guy's got a lot of other really interesting connections that the Kappa, that's it, the Delta Kappa Epsilon. So this is another one of the secret societies at Yale. Maybe less secret, so this is just in a very exclusive fraternity that also includes a lot of the Bush family, a lot of other political intelligence dynasties. So I guess another feather in that cap that David was mentioning is that the establishment, especially in academia, outside of just regular peer review, but in academia, they can also determine what types of information should be put forth. For example, having canals on Mars and being able to colonize Mars. These are things that have been set in motion since before the 1900s.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I'm very pro sort of space exploration and scientific revolutions, Renaissance, fusion development, matter antimatter research. All these things fascinate me, and sort of overthrowing the current standard models, which were essentially established by these occult sort of priestly classes of magicians who sort of double as scientists, but they're doing what we're describing here, right? They want to understand the technical knowledge, the mathematics, but for very different reasons. So yeah, I mean, okay, we'll have a spacefaring society. You have space tourism. You can go on Jeff Bezos's rocket ship. You go into the atmosphere, or you see the atmosphere. Then you go back down and you go work in the factory. Okay, great. You know what I mean? You still have this medieval technocratic serf society. So that's not the move, right? So especially if it's in the hands of the military industrial complex, where there is no government space agency, or even Matt had shared something in Telegram, as if the private sector, for example, is more efficient. Was it more efficient than NASA? Is Elon Musk's Starlink and all these what's his space
it's
SpaceX? Yeah,
space, yeah,
it,
SpaceX.
it's had tons of things blow up. It's had tons of problems. Is it really more efficient than NASA, when NASA had the funding and you had this sort of national mission? And little children, what do you want to be when you grow up, Billy? I want to be an astronaut. I want to be an engineer. There was an optimism. There was an overwhelming optimism that man could actually sort of, I don't want to say conquer, but conquer, right, the universe in a good sense. And he was not just hostage to the elements, to Gaia, right, to Mother Nature, which is the older pagan sort of great mother, earth mother cults. I mean, this is what the Emperor Julian the Apostate was trying to bring back. He was trained by Neoplatonist philosophers who were the first Theosophists. If you even go on the Theosophist wiki, they'll tell you, like, the Neoplatonists were essentially Theosophists. They had all these ideas of spiritual transcendence, the ascendance of the soul, and all that. And so you got this same thing with this more just technocratic Martian technocracy idea. but yeah, some of these myths are easy to sort of poke holes in. Like NASA worked fine until you pulled the funding. Why'd they pull the funding? Because the occult banking syndicate did not like, the Tavistock Institute did not like, they had a report, they didn't like the amount of engineers that this sort of mission orientation economy was producing, right? It wasn't just, let's rely on venture capital firms to fund energy grids, nuclear power plants. You had a 25 to 50-year plan, and with the plan and the funding, then that would spill over into the civilian economy, right? That would stimulate all of the private sectors to invest in their R&D and to invest in their human resources and all that. You had a vision, right? Where there is no vision, the people perish, right? So if you get rid of that and you replace it with this weird technocratic sort of libertarian idea where there is no mission orientation, really, they're just using these images of yeah, we're all going to go to space and transcend, but it's really just Matt Damon's Elysium, where it's like Hunger Games and we cured cancer in space.
Right, right. And also Elon Musk and these billionaires, I didn't get to read this article, but I'm definitely going to. They're all into the social credit scoring system, the UBI, Universal Basic Income.
Mm-hmm.
They're all into it. They're all doing all the same things. They're all got rockets, and they're all into all the same stuff. And this meme magic is something that I've been covering for a while on how these images and symbols do get into the minds of the masses. And you were saying something about the peer review, and the algorithm is doing a peer review, in my opinion, through the comment section. So right when Elon started jumping up and down,
Mm-hmm.
I forgot, like, I just look at symbols, so I wasn't emotionally attached to the story. um I understand it's a pretty big victory for the United States, getting like Trump in and all that. Like, so I was detached from that because I'm just looking at, this guy's going to put a microchip in everyone's brain. Like, so I'm not thinking about the hopium that America has gotten, which is a good thing that they got their hope in the hopium. But I forgot about that. And then the crowd was so mad that I attacked Elon. And this is like the peer review for the algorithm. I feel like in the comment section, it's like the crowd. Like, people just got so upset that he's doing these. This is a symbol that he's doing, even though that face is nuts. That face is nuts. These are symbols, just like all these rockets are phallics, and the Virgin record guy, his virgin is like, it's all symbolism at the end of the day, and it's all connected to some alien stuff. Like the Raelians. Like, there's a lot definitely going on, and we crashed through over 1,000 people tuning in. I like to remind everybody, every time we crash through 1,000 people, we're streaming all over the place. Please smash that like button, share the video out. We are joined with David Gosselin, Paranoid American, and we're doing these streams every single night because we dropping that Illuminati comic. And thank you so much for this fan art. We got some new fan art of some new dolphins. Looks like they got the Order of the Sprinkles right there. Even Joe Biden has carried a stack out of the White House of the Illuminati comic.
We did it, Joe.
Absolutely incredible. Some people were saying that this was AI. I don't understand. The AI is looking real.
AI can't look that good yet, though.
Yeah, no, this is actually Joe Biden. And the Illuminati comic, we passed through the 33,000. So we unlock the secrets. We unlock the tier right here, 33,000. So everyone gets an extra sticker sheet if you get the VIP box. So thank you so much. And those links are down below. I'll pin that for the Illuminati comic. And Paranoid, do we have to read anybody's names or anything?
Yeah, we got a whole bunch from between last night and tonight. So we'll fire them off here.
Okay. And also my cat I just brought to the vet because everyone was asking about my cat peeing on me. So we brought Chan to the vet. He got his blood work done. I spent the whole day there. So we're not going to be giving him treats while he names off the names. We're going to be giving him MK Ultra drugs.
And some cranberry juice. Give him some cranberry juice. It'll be fun.
And some cranberry juice as well.
All right, here are the names. I'll let you hype them up. I'll just underhand them, and then you can knock them out of the park.
Okay.
We got Linda Holt.
Linda, woo woo.
Richard Duckett joined the Illuminati Yacht Club.
Oh, you joined the secrets. You got access to the secrets. Illuminati Yacht Club. What's his name?
Richard Duckett.
Richard. Oh, Richard. Richard is a longtime Patreon member. Thank you, Richard.
Jerry Germain.
Jerry, let's go.
Kim Hart McBride, thank you so much for your backing.
Kim Hart McBride.
Bernadette O'Brien, she did an upgrade. Thank you for the upgrade.
Upgrade. Bernadette upgraded the secrets. Is
We
this
got-
cool? Giving the cat LSD?
We got one from someone that called themselves Alex Jones that was just an anonymous $100 donation. So thank you to whoever Alex Jones was.
Thank you, Alex.
I'm gonna decide to believe that was the actual Alex Jones.
It wasn't.
Monicarism. Shout out to Monicarism. That's a pretty dope name.
Thank you, Monicarism.
Austin Schmutz, who got the trading card combo.
Thank you, Austin. Woo,
Tiffany
woo.
Schilling. We got like 6 more. Tiffany Schilling.
Tiffany.
Rachel. Oh, and Tiffany got the VIP VHS box, by the way. So she's smart. She's getting all the extra goodies that you just showed us.
Oh, snap.
Rachel VK.
Rachel.
Stacia Williams upgraded to a VIP box. A lot of upgrades. The upgrades are actually helping out just as much as like a new person signing up.
Upgrade.
Matthew Carl Layton got the color combo. Thank you.
Matthew.
And then 7 upgraded from, they started with the digital deluxe and now they're getting the trading card combo. And I'm pretty sure the more they watch this, the more they're going to want to upgrade to that VHS box.
Thank you so much for giving my cat all them drugs, and go upgrade. Upgrade. It really helps the kitty cat out and all that. What's your thoughts on all that, David? Isn't this a crazy campaign?
Number one.
Oh my goodness. We just got another sign up.
Oh yeah, shout out to Amy Campbell who just joined the Illuminati Yacht Club. I honestly feel that when people start posting all their Illuminati Yacht Club stuff, it's going to be the real FOMO. Like people are going to see how cool all the Illuminati Yacht Club stuff was and wish they had got it.
Yeah, and also since we unlocked the secrets of the stretch goal, we unlocked the 33K. Now the next stretch goal is 47K, where we're gonna be dropping a Do-Fi album.
Yeah. What is a Do-Fi album? Can you explain what that is?
Oh, you know, like lo-fi, how they have like the little kitty cats chilling, like in the music playing, and Bart Simpson's like smoking in like in the city in like Japan. Do you know what I'm talking about? I'll pull it up.
Yeah, no, I know. Lo-Fi Girl. So I think actually if we do the Do-Fi album, we should make a little Do-Fi scene that looks like that, except it's Donut editing a video and Chan's on the desk.
Yeah, something like that. Something like this. It'll be like this, but then like Chan will be on the desk and I'll be like saying manifestations. You're going
I really need to see this happen now, man. This would be amazing.
Yeah. That's what's up. Thank you, everybody. And let's try to make the goal tonight. Let's get this to 34 so we could pass that Illuminati 33 number and get it to 34. I think that'd be a good goal. Where can we send people for you, David?
I mean, people just check out Age of Muses. We got a lot of, like I said, I've been like on a research project for the last 4 months. So I've been reading a shit ton of stuff. And yeah, if the ageofmuses.substack.com, all my interviews come out, original stories. I have a new dialogue that I was taking some acting voice classes with a very talented coach. So I'm redoing the recordings for the dialogues that I've written. The second snake, which is about Adam and Eve. So Adam and Eve are visited by a second snake in their old age, and there's a dialogue. He's asking them what they've learned in their old age from their fall. So revisiting classic themes in the classical tradition, where there's something old, but there's also something new, and it's really a question of how to treat that theme. What would happen if this snake isn't the devil, right? He's a different snake, and he starts asking them all sorts of questions, and they have questions. Can they undo their fall, right? Can they they regret biting the apple, but was the problem really that they bit the apple of the tree of knowledge of good and evil? Or in the dialogue, he's saying, or is it that you didn't finish the apple because the taste was too bitter? But then why was the taste of wisdom so bitter for Adam and Eve? Were they ready for it? So that's one dialogue. So I'm redoing the recording for that. That's going to be out soon. And the other dialogue that we published in the latest issue of our New Liar magazine, which is poetry, translation, essays, is Daedalus and Icarus. So the shade of Icarus floats back up from the sea and finds his father contemplating on the edge of a cliff. And they have a dialogue. The question being, does man always have to fly too close to the sun? For the people not familiar, so the myth of Icarus, right? He flies. His father is the great inventor, Daedalus, and they have to escape the labyrinth where the Minotaur is being held, the labyrinth that his father created for King Minos. And so Daedalus comes up with another crafty idea, a real crafty guy, and he makes wings, and they are able to escape, but he warns his son, don't fly too close to the sun. It's just wax and feathers. It won't hold. But of course, so as brilliant as he was, right, he's kind of is like the archetypal magician in a sense, or inventor. He didn't foresee, he miscalculated. And so the question is, does man always have to fly too close to the sun? I think it's a question for all of us, right? And for each of us. And so, yeah, these are some of the things coming out, and that they can find in print as well. So that's 10,000 words. I spent many months working on that as I was grinding as well, taking care of the apartment building where I lived, 97 apartments. Bit of an open air asylum. It was more work than I bargained for when I originally took the job. So yeah, we're all hustling, right? We're all in the independent creation world. But I think it's very exciting now, right? Like the other polemic that I've been throwing around is that, are we in a golden age? Are we headed into a golden age? In the sense that a lot of the culture war stuff and the commentary today is that, yeah, everything is so shitty. People don't love goodness, truth, and beauty. And like with the alt-right, they have a lot of this meme magic where it's Spartan warrior cults, right? Roman emperors, Tiberius, and all these honorable emperors, right? These were aristocracies, right? They liked excellence. We are run by a tribal longhouse gerontocracy. And historically, this kind of tribal, archaic format of civilization is usually this is where the magicians and the sorcerers kind of rise up to become sacred kings, where they challenge the kind of tribal, it's elders, right? It's tradition, it's nomos, it's the customs. And the sorcerers, the magicians, the rainmakers, they're the ones who are able to challenge and manipulate the customs of the tribe and lead people to greatness, right? Lead the tribe out of the crisis. Make, maybe you have to roll the baby's heads down the pyramid so that it starts raining again. Who knows? But we'll be saved by these people. So yeah, these are just some examples, some thoughts.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. It's good to see somebody also hustling and working on art, but also having responsibilities in life as well, to dedicate it to. It's just nice to keep building. And you bring up the good a lot. You've read a lot of these books, Plato, The Republic, these high art, high culture. I'm a little brain dead from all the uh, Tavistock social engineering,
Right.
MTV brainwashing. Really fried
We all, and well, I
my
just
brain.
realized, sorry, I had, I mid thought, I had a little brain fart there, but yeah, what I was saying about as well. So there's all this bad stuff, and we're being hit with all this kind of meme magic. We're going to be saved, but the real golden age, I think, is that a lot of what the bad guys are doing now, right? This sort of new, reinventing themselves is really because the internet did get away from them, right? Social media did, as much control as they've been able to exert these vast, complex cybernetic systems. Wasn't the internet some DARPA mind control program? Yeah, but at the same time, the view of these Luciferians is that human beings are basically just animals that can be sort of reflex conditioned, right? They're just Pavlovian dogs. And with the right mix of reward and punishment and the right amount of feedback loops from Hollywood, the silver screen, you can sort of project the image that you want people to internalize. You can change their own self image and make them into your image or into their image. But it didn't exactly happen that way, right? People started their own podcasts. People started to have real conversations. That was not calculated. Like as now in hindsight, it seems so obvious. But if you have this very misanthropic view of human beings, they tend to underestimate the sort of Promethean qualities in man, right? That there is, this Prometheus being the Titan who sort of stole fire from the gods of Olympus and gave it to mankind. And he was punished for that, but he had foresight. Prometheus actually means foresight in Greek. And so he foresaw the fall or the defeat of Zeus or whatever you want to call it. And so there's that as well, right? So how do they put that genie back in the bottle? They're doing what they're always try to do, right? They're sort of assimilating, right? They're assimilating the MAGA movement. They're assimilating populism and trying to sort of steer it into this direction. But they're doing all that because all of it has kind of gotten away from them. And you do have a new sort of international system outside the rules-based order of countries that we could criticize, whether it's Russia, China, or Iran, or all these countries. But the reality is that like the BRICS represent much more of human civilization, and just in pure numbers, than the sort of Atlantis's Borg cube, the transatlantic sort of triangle of Europe, the Americas. So I think that's where there's reason to have hope and optimism. And that's why, we need to be sort of going hard, right? And putting out doing these original things, having these independent enterprises. They don't like that. And I've noticed even that a lot of podcasts, I think they've just infiltrated a lot of stuff I see podcasts where they were putting out a lot of good stuff during the pandemic, and it seems that they've just been kind of assimilated, right? They sort of flood these things with money, right? I see some of them are so gross now, like the trigonometry podcast, the even germ warfare. There's so many of them that like they're just full hog wild into whatever, whether it's aliens, whether maybe Hitler wasn't that bad, or like all these things. You're just like, where is this coming from? And that's what they do. That's what the bad guys do. So you guys, independent, not infiltrated by the Illuminati. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's like the lockdowns happen. It was important to talk about it. What I'm looking at is there's all these new people that are leading the charge of the field I am obsessed with, of symbolism, of conspiracy, out of nowhere. And they say they just woke up. Like, oh, you know what? 2020, I woke up. Sure, I was a federal agent before, but don't look at that. Let's do this. They get millions and millions and millions of views. They get paid by an algorithm of hatred. That's what I like to call it. So they're incentivized to push different stories. The aliens is the biggest one. If I wanted to, I'd be I'd be really successful right now if I talked about aliens, told my audience to do drugs, and for them to be hateful. You mix those three together, it's a recipe of success for the algorithm. Be hateful, tell your audience to believe in aliens, and push drugs on them, and then you're gonna be a success.
Yeah, this is like initiating people into, how can anybody laugh at Scientology? And then it's like, wait, you're being initiated into an alien cult by like Joe Rogan and whoever else. I mean, I've seen so many weird ones. Schellenberg or whatever his name is. Lots of like groundbreaking Twitter files, and like here's all the corruption behind the COVID pandemic and Pfizer and da-da-da. And then he's just running stuff on governments hiding alien disclosure, secret documents and stuff. They really just want to break people's brains. I think if people sort of keep that in mind, like then you see how the old mystery cults work, and you see that's what they really want to bring back. At the end of the day, they hate modern Western civilization that sort of emerged out of the Renaissance, where you sort of had a rediscovery of classical learning, the classical world, which had died out. In one of the last podcasts, with Crawford, we were talking about, was talking on an optimistic note that, okay, the Athens of Socrates and all that, by 100, 200 AD, I mean, Athens, it was dog shit. Egypt, it was just all infested with mystery cults, right? All these weird mystic sort of, it's like Daedalus's labyrinth. They sort of lead you in, they promise you all sorts of things. Hey, we're going to find out about the aliens, and that's how we're going to understand these technologies that no one can really explain. Tucker Carlson doesn't know where nuclear power comes from. He thinks the demons sort of under the sea gave it to us or something. They want that back, because what they're saying, and Carl Jung, I'm talking about this in the paper that's coming out. Carl Jung's a good example, where they're saying that with modern civilization, mankind lost magic, and in losing magic, he lost the meaning making. The Pueblo Indians, they have their ritual to make sure that the sun traverses across the sky, and he was talking to them, and they were saying, like, the white man doesn't understand. What would happen if we didn't do this 8-hour sort of prayer ritual and dance? The sun would not cross the sky. There would be no day. And so Jung is talking about his insights into these archaic forms of civilization, which the remnants are in these indigenous tribes, whether it's in like Guinea or the Aboriginals of Australia. That's what Margaret Mead, that's what Gregory Bateson, that's what these MK Ultra scientists were studying, because these were primitive forms of civilization that they were saying, how are their belief structures formed? How do they come to their meaning making? They don't seem bothered by the things that modern man is bothered. Modern man is haunted, right? Because he lost a sense of deeper meaning, and that there's a divine force sort of shaping everything. Hardcore superstition, pretty much. And that's not compatible with a modern industrial Western civilization. That doesn't mean religion or faith is not compatible. I'd say quite the opposite. But they need to obscure these things. On the higher, the humanist, Renaissance humanist level, the philosopher, for example, Nicholas of Cusa, makes the point that science requires a leap of faith. The idea that there's no place for faith in the modern world is silly, because science, the idea of science assumes that man can know creation, right? That the nature of creation is something governed by reason. It's not arbitrary, right? It's not unlawful. And the fact that man can unearth the workings of the universe, never perfectly, right, but always less imperfectly, means that there's a coherence between the microcosm and the macrocosm. And if you have the kind of education that fosters that, the kind of creative and intuitive sort of hypothesis formation, where people make breakthroughs, the light comes on, new discoveries are made, you can't control that. And so their shtick is, well, that's what magic is, sort of the answer, right? So they'll be like, yeah, magic is actually again, aliens or psychedelics. It's more of the same. This is actually how you'll access wisdom and sacred knowledge. Don't study classical. Don't study the origins of Western civilization, of classical civilization, of the Renaissance, of modern science, which dwarfs the magic of the shaman, right? Okay, the rainmaker knows build the villages on like a hilltop, because you're going to get more favorable weather and rainfall, and so you'll have crops, so you can put food in your baby's tummy. He knows to tell the people kind of where to maybe set up shop, so they believe in him because he can make rain. But that's nothing compared to if you have a modern, nuclear powered society that can green the deserts in Africa, right? That can do irrigation. California used to be a desert, right? Much of the United States, where there are population centers, if it wasn't for modern irrigation, building dams, infrastructure, Lincoln building the transcontinental railway, so you could have interconnectivity of the inland continent, you could never have civilization. If you had these mystery cults, none of this stuff would have happened. So the real magic is not gone, I would argue. And that's where we can appreciate the deeper evil of these kinds of magicians. Like, that's really what they want to get rid of at the end of the day. That's why they have cybernetics. That's why they have psychedelic revival of Eleusinian mystery cults. It's to get rid of this tradition. And so that's exciting, because we can rediscover that tradition. I mean, that's what the deep dives that we put out at Age of Muses is concerned with. That's what stuff that Matt Ehret does over Rising Tides. And there's a lot of, again, like ourselves, independent creators that, now is a good time to get in touch with the best of the Western tradition, which these magicians always kind of need to obscure with aliens and drugs and sex at the end of the day.
And there's been this big push towards the West through bankers, through different people, Henry Luce, all these different people, J.P. Morgan, propagandists, to get us away from Western man. It seemed to collapse it, and also the Dostoevsky Christianity that the power elites like the Kissingers knew about, where the world was going to go into this certain way because of the disenchantment
Mm.
of the Faustian bargain. And they would also want to know about the secrets. They would also want to
Secrets.
unlock the secrets. Somebody even wrote secrets. But right now Bible sales are like at next level
Right.
sales, because the Illuminati power structure knows this is where people are going, and this is interesting. They took it down, but it says right here Bible sales booming.
Yeah, I
They
saw that.
took they took down the image. I could pull it up though, but they were showing a Bible with with the cross of Jerusalem, Knights Templar. They
Word.
just, so the Drudge Report be showing these symbols here. I'll pull it up real quick because I always screenshot stuff like right away
Okay,
because
smart.
yeah, because they change it. So this was what they posted and they deleted it. Bible sales booming, but then you see
Right.
the Knights Templar cross there. They choose that one, and I'm sure the Swiss Army knife is probably a symbol too. Who knows? But with Tucker saying that he's being attacked by demons, they rubbing his back and all that. They're showing these symbols. They know the psychology of people. I don't even know where I was going with that, but here's some of the images that I was gonna put this on Elon's head. But
Well, I talked about sort of there is a sort of emergence, or the question of faith hasn't gone away in religion. And again, here you can see that the occultists are sort of capitalizing on that, whether it's with the Tucker sort of demonology. They're trying to appeal to the Judeo-Christian sort of currents and corral them into, again, let's not forget that the Templars were like a Gnostic cult, right? They were burned. A lot of them were burned at the stake because it was discovered that they were, doing black magic rituals and doing all the usual things that you mentioned before, that you didn't want to mention on the internet. And so the question is it the Christian? Sorry.
no, that's what Peter Thiel would be doing. He'd be doing
Yeah.
some.
So is it the Christianity of the Sermon on the Mount? Blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are the meek, blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the peacemakers, they shall be called the children of God. Or is it this Templar crusading crazy shit, right? Where you have again the meme magic. It's all about excellence and like strong men, Spartan warrior cults, and
Right.
mankind sort of lost its appetite. Christianity lost its appetite for war, and now everybody is just sort of shitty because we're afraid to fight for our values and our traditions. They want to get, I mean, as Matt put it, I think the Dark Maga, he was saying, it's like they don't want you to just have the gun, but they want you to like finally pull the trigger, right? They want to get people to become sort of violent and aggressive over these
Yeah.
things rather
Yeah.
than remembering. And so you get the Jew stuff, right? Oh, it's
Right.
the Jewish conspiracies.
Right.
As I just like to point out, I mean, if you go back to the time of Christ, like who was running Rome? Is Tiberius. Is the emperor Tiberius was in his baths with little boys, and he would molest them and then he would drown them. Right. This
Right.
is Nick Bryan, who did the Thompson cover up, the UFO, or the weird, the Finders groups,
Yeah,
or
the
sex.
Franklin scandal.
Yeah. So yeah, he's just making the point that these weird ritualistic sex cults and like child trafficking things, you could go back if you go to Rome and the heart of the power structures and the many cults, right? The priesthoods that were controlling all the mystery cults. You find the same thing. So that was the nerve center. It was not like the outskirts of Palestine, right? And the Jews and all that. That's not what was running the empire. And so that thing is still in power. That old mystery cult satanic thing is the occult banking syndicate.
Right.
So
Right.
people are getting fooled if they go down these rabbit holes with Candace Owens, right? Another big one, we can mention her, but she's
Right.
married into a vampire cult. Her husband is this weird, hereditary, the son of a hereditary lord, so he'll be a lord. And it's the Anglo-American establishment, right? And they're the ones who originally, Richard Poe, right, the scholar, he's shared his stuff on how the British intelligence sort of created the whole Jew sort of paranoia frenzy that would be used in Nazi Germany. Okay, and they're doing it again. So if you look into the Theosophist circles and all, Alice Bailey, she wanted to eliminate all Africans and Orthodox Jews, among others, right? She thought they should all be wiped off the earth. These are the real Satanists. So, yeah, people are really getting taken for a ride if they, they're swallowing all this stuff that Candace and Tucker and all these guys are hawking, along with the aliens and the demonology, and then they're like, "Yeah, I found my faith." That's crazy. That's
And then like right
Satanism.
for real, like it's nuts. And like the House of Lords, like I just the more I look into this, where her husband is at, then you got David Lloyd George, and remember this guy does not like I did this deep dive with Cynthia. She did the deep dive. I just interviewed her, but he's part of that as well. Like so it gets freaky for sure.
Yeah,
Uh
this is the upper crust. So I don't know how Candace got involved with that, or like was this I don't, it's weird. But just to say, like, these chivalric orders, right, inside the Catholic Church, outside in whether it's Knights of Malta or the Holy Sepulchre or Knights of Jerusalem, or right, there's so many, right, St. John's. These things are that's what runs the intelligence agencies.
the
Sorry.
Five
And
Eyes.
Five Eyes, yeah, like nothing new under the sun in that sense. So if we remember that that's always the enemy, these guys shapeshift. They shapeshift. They all the time. They're running. The Ossifists and these guys were behind. I mean, all Wall Street, right, was behind Hitler. So,
Right.
and today, what is it? What were a lot of the Nazis called? They were anti-communists. That was the new label that they took on. And so, what do you keep hearing today? Right, it's the whole fight against communism, right out of like a McCarthy playbook, as if we've learned nothing from that. Who was running that? It was the intelligence agencies.
Yeah, we got a lot to learn because it's crazy. And like if I talk about any of this stuff, the backlash I get in the attacks is crazy. But and also the whole world was locked down, and then once they reopen up the world, bam, you have Kanye blaming the Jews, the most mainstream artist who's connected to bloodline to the Kardashian cults. Like it's I can see through it, but most of the world can't see through it. And I guess that's how it's been all throughout history.
Yeah, and look, I don't know for every single. I found the Kanye's interesting in that he seems to have like gone off script, but then he seems to have been sort of. I mean, some of these MK Ultra and like Hollywood handler sort of operations are so high level, right? They're so sophisticated that it's pretty wild, right? Like during the pandemic, was it Nicki Minaj who said like prey
Yeah.
on whether you should get vaccinated or not? Like she made one comment,
And then she
but
disappeared.
she had like 300 million Instagram followers. So it's like when one of these people falls out of line even a bit, it's a problem, right? Because it's such a powerful and big machine. And like Kanye had pointed out, what did the handlers, Kardashian handlers, he said, what do they do? They're the people who tell you what you should be afraid of, which is very interesting, right? Because that's the thing. If you elicit images and scenarios, right? We're talking about trauma mind control here. hypnosis, where you elicit the right images, and well, if you say this, this could happen. You don't want that to happen, right? You don't want to lose this thing and that thing, and then that person's gonna, drop you. A lot of these celebrities are nowhere near as powerful as they seem, right? They have big empires, but there's plenty of evidence to suggest that if they fall out of line, these people can be taken out very quickly. And so I don't know if the Borg cube sort of came back, Kanye went off script. He's probably done all sorts of weird and bad things, but doesn't mean these people don't break profile. Even MK Ultra mind control victims can sort of start spilling the beans, right? McGowan, actually, Dave McGowan, who wrote Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon, he has another book, which I still need to read, Programmed to Kill. But he made some mention in Weird Scenes from the Canyon about what MK Ultra, like he had split personalities. He had like the alpha programming, like the assassination sort of programming, and another. And he was saying that he was a intelligence agency experiment, and they wanted him to, he was trained to kill, and da da da. These people don't always work out, right? Because they're preying on mentally ill people who have trauma backgrounds, right? Who easily disassociate. But it doesn't mean that these people will forget, right? Their memories are never fully wiped, and things can be triggered. I know somebody who was MK Ultra, not as, from what I can tell, or from what she said, like she wasn't part of a program, but it was by one of her own family members, who, like, he renamed her, gave her a second name when she was just a baby, and he hypnotized her. So there was more than one of her, and one was a sex slave, and one was just, she thought everything was normal, and the two worlds didn't really ever meet until much later, until she was like in her 50s, and memories started to come back. So you do get these glitches in the MK Ultra programming, and then it's like if you start to poke, you're like, whoa, this thing is wild.
Have
Right?
you seen the film Blink Twice yet? It's about remembering the MK Ultra, like remembering kind of like what you're talking about, where they get brainwashed to forget and then they start remembering stuff. This is a good movie. If you haven't seen it. Or have you seen the movie The Apprentice about Trump? The new one?
No.
Oh man, it's sick. Like it goes into Roy Cohn and like the espionage blackmail that they were doing, and they show all the frogs too. So like it goes into like the frog thing with the meme magic. It seems that that's where it. I feel like it's like a hidden code. Like yo, there's a hidden secret. There's a hidden secret behind the frog.
You mean Pepe the Frog?
There's a yeah. So like
I don't know I mean, I know it's the whole. Well, it's always a wink and a nudge, right, for the alt-right stuff, which is dark MAGA, right, which is really sort of targeted the younger generations, the Zoomers. Yeah. I mean, I follow various Zoomer Telegram channels and stuff. I follow a lot of stuff, but like all of you guys. But some of the memes, like it's a lot of. I mean, the Zoomers are pretty hardcore. A lot of them that have been radicalized. And you see, okay, so in 10 years, these people are going to be whatever, early 30s, mid 30s, and not far down the line, I mean, they will eventually sort of come into power. Mm-hmm. And what will that look like if they've been sort of, if they've been drinking this Templar and all this dark MAGA Kool-Aid? The Pepe the Frog is kind of like a wink and a nudge, just joking, bro, right? But like Nick Fuentes he talked about that. Like they make really hardcore, like racist or just crazy. They say crazy things, right? Whether it's like the Jewish conspiracy, and then they'll say just joking, bro, right? So like, oh, we're just joking. So it's kind of like ironic. So. Yeah, they create cultures, right? You put, it's just a picture, it's just an image. You put a meme, you put it there, and you get people to emote with these things, and now they feel they're part of like kind of a secret society. They're part of a tribe, right? They're part of a a political family of initiates.
Right. I don't know if you know what a juggalo is. It's a fan of Insane Clown Posse, rap group, and
Yeah, you said you were raised in that, huh?
yeah, I grew up. So like, I got my like first like hand of being like a follower of like a band, a group, right? And we were like the original memes, where we would all like talk crap about everybody. It was raunchy. They would say awful things, and it was fun and cool, especially when you're like 14. So like, I don't know the Zoomers. They're probably like 14-year-old kids that are. I don't know their age bracket. Um, but these movements are put in place by the Tavistock Institutes, by the Illuminati, the Greta Thunberg movements.
Right.
There's all these different movements. They're traps for the youth because they know the youth is mad and pent up aggression and rage, and they give me Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah, they're disenchanted.
Yes. And so all the movements we see online that are being promoted, even if they're not being promoted by the mainstream, but they still go on mainstream talk show. Like Piers Morgan, he brings on the most nastiest people on his show to promote them. Like, and so we're not the mainstream. It's the same thing with ICP and the Juggalos. Like they're weren't allowed in the mainstream, but they were in the mainstream. Disney put out the record. They're in the show The Office. They're in the show on the mainstream shows, But or Eminem makes fun of them at the
Right.
Dr. Dre. Like, so they're in the mainstream, but they're not the mainstream. So it's sort of, I feel like the same tactics with
It's a counterculture, right?
counterculture.
What was the 1960s rock, drugs, sex, hippie movement, right? Which in, again, Dave McGowan's book, Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon, he talks about some of the handlers like Frank Zappa, or that the children of military industrial complex and intelligence families, very powerful ones, were tasked with sort of inspiring and managing the movement. Jim Morrison's father was a high-level Navy admiral who participated in the non-event or false flag Gulf of Tonkin incident. Frank Zappa's father was a chemical warfare specialist in Maryland. And Frank Zappa was one of like the godfathers or spiritual fathers of the movement, yet they were hardcore, like they were right? They were like hardcore conservative sort of establishment people. They didn't like the hippies, but yet they were around them, and they were shaping that culture. And what did the hippies do, right? A lot of the anti-war sentiments and movements that were genuinely against war in the military industrial complex were pulled into this sex, drugs, altered states, right? Get like alter your state, take LSD, liberation, all these things. And so legitimate people didn't really want to be associated with that. So the anti-war movement kind of fizzles out because now you're going to be associated with drug addicts, right? With people in a 20-person polycule at Woodstock, who, and that's how they're
Or
liberating
Burning
themselves.
Man. Like now it's Burning Man. Like where they it's the same thing. It's like the same story, just different location.
Yeah, and
Did
so
you
Juggalo though, I have a quick. So who ran the Juggalo thing? Like, was there like a Godfather thing? Like, how was this thing?
I'm so happy you asked. This is my favorite topic. So I would say Violent J is the leader of it. I think he has the most influence out of everybody. But the Juggalos is different than ICP. There's a lot of Grateful Dead connections to it all. Even the Hatchet Man, their logo, which is the symbol, is the exact same thing as the Grateful Dead dancing bear. It's the same thing, but they threw a hatchet in its hand and gave it like dreadlocks. And also, the people that put on the Gathering of the Juggalos, there is a military connection, not to leave out, with like Jump Steady's, Violent J's brother military connections. They grew up on like an army base pretty much, and they didn't like the racism and on the army base, so they really put that in their music and their messaging, and that's why I really enjoyed that movement, because it was anti-bigotry. It was there's a lot of good stuff about it, especially as the disenchanted, angry youth. You get to hear about them killing people and all that. It's what little like 12-year-old Donut wanted to listen to, because I was so angry, but it was also I was so scared. So it was a way to process what reality. Same thing with heavy metal. People listen to heavy metal or make it.
Yeah.
It's a way to process reality. It's a good. It's not like I'm not throwing the whole thing out there, but the Juggalos are like the hippies. So we're our own thing. So it's its own thing that takes on its own mimetic magic hive mind, and
Right.
it's the collective. It's the crowd. It's the crowd consciousness. It doesn't have a thinking brain of itself. It's not an individual, just like the hippie movement. And the hippie movement, the biggest threat is Noam Chomsky, because he spoke adequately and he dressed nice, and he was someone, the anti-war movement people the war movement was scared of him. So they create the Timothy Leary to push the drug culture. And so like the whole Juggalo thing is just a big drug culture in a sense as well.
Interesting. And yeah, I mean, we realize when we zoom out, there are so many of these kind of cult experiments, right? And this is how the social engineers learn, right? Like the one thing that is interesting is while we're saying that science has been very much top-down controlled and all sorts of things have been prohibited, like science, there's a lot of weird theoretical stuff, right? The standard model from the early 1900s is still the thing that is held up as the definite model, and physics has sort of been really held back. Science has been held back because we haven't broken out of this. It's just like random particles floating around in empty space around some core nut, and it's not organized, right? Space is not really organized. It's kind of just random and empty. And so just to say, the scientists, they'll control these kind of scientific notions, and there's not much experimental science or combined with solid theory. But then when you go to social engineers and these MK Ultra experiments, they do so many experiments. They do so much field work, right? They're going and they're profiling all the Aboriginal tribes. They're creating a Manson cult. They're creating a rock, drug, sex counterculture. They're clearly, probably created Juggalo and these kind of weird things. Jim Jones, right? The evangelical cults. I knew someone once, he was saying how his father had gotten somewhat high up in these mega church evangelical groups, and he saw that during the 2004, they were all infiltrated by the intelligence agencies, which were trying to push the Iraq war, right? And so there's always this intelligence connection to these things. It's like you can just sort of take it for granted, assume it is, and as a hypothesis, and then see if you can find some sort of higher up priest kind of steering it. Same way, Manson was being steered by all sorts of shady characters.
Right.
His name Jolly, and there's a bunch of others. It's Scientology. He was also apparently involved with Scientology. In Laurel Canyon, they were close to where Heinlein, this sci-fi writer, part of the Crowleyan Lodge, who lived on Lookout Mountain, which was a secret military base that this is what McGowan talks about, with equipped with like a huge film studios and everything. So it seemed like that's where they were creating propaganda and the counterculture. That was all in the same area. So yeah, they're seeding all kinds of movements, and then the movements take a life of their own. So they don't seem like they're controlled, but that's actually how it works. You want the thing to kind of take a life of its own, but it's imbibed certain core ideas that it'll just sort of naturally play out. This is cybernetics as well. Like I was listening to a lecture by Bateson, and he was talking about what is cybernetics. He's looking at history, and he's saying there's a lot of details or events that people think are important in history, but what we're looking at are those moments of change where there's a change in attitude, there's a change in outlook, and then everything else is just a pattern playing out. So if you can understand those critical junctures where new patterns are formed, or how pattern formation happens, right? Whether it's in tribes and their religious rituals, or in culture, right? The music and the entertainment that people like, and how that creates feedback loops, and sort of it feeds back into their self-image. That's what MK Ultra mind control stuff. I mean, they look at all that, and that's required a lot of experimentation. You know, McGill University here in Montreal, it's where they were doing experiments on if you can create a blank slate, if you can really from scratch totally erase everything and give people a new personality. You know, put them in a coma for 3 months and play some recording and see if they kind of remember and learn everything. And they saw that certain things were limited, certain things did not work. But like you could implant false memories, which in a sense, if you can implant a false memory, that means you can get people to forget the past because they have another memory of what actually happened. So they're not blank slates, but they're compartmentalized. And it's like, okay, there's only a certain perception of the population that can fully disassociate or is more prone to disassociation. And so we need to find these people. We need to find, in the prison system or in the mental health world, right? Kids who have been abused, they're more likely. We saw with this Trump assassin, I don't know what's going on. Still a lot of, but this kid we know nothing about him except he was like in a BlackRock commercial. And
How weird is that?
both his parents were social workers.
It's so weird. Yeah. And the whole thing of that happening and then where we're at now, I was breaking down this is the symbol, which is a pyramid with the missing capstone of the pyramidion. And then this is where he revealed the dark Maga, right? It was just Maga, where people were like, Maga, that's in people have been talking about that forever. But that it happened here in this Keystone State, it just was so symbolic when I was looking at it. And now we see crypto, skyrocketing. The PayPal mafia created this sort of like how the hippie movement was created, or DARPA creating Facebook. Like they created Bitcoin, crypto, the internet to give it the life of its own, and also because handing it without regulations or rules is where innovation comes in, before the regulators come in to control it, all from the builders, from the creative.
Yeah, they're always steal, right? You always find out these people are like stealing things. Bill Gates, he just stole a bunch of stuff that other people had done and sort of patented it. Like, yeah, it's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
All the more when we study these things, like the faces change, right? The outward appearance of things change. But the whole point of a true aristocratic classical education in Plato's sense is we go beyond the level of appearances. He describes 6 different kinds of men, and he says there are as many kinds of states as there are kinds of men, because he's talking about what's the ideal form of government for a republic. And so he lays out different personalities. Right at the bottom, you have the tyrant, who's the Nietzschean, right? Might makes right. He knows he can impose his will, and he doesn't really believe in any higher truth beyond strength and power. Then you have the democratic man. Democrat comes from demos, which is the mob. So the democratic society is basically mob rule. It's opinion, which is in Greek it's doxa. So the people at the level of democratic world, they operate on opinion. So like, I like this thing, it makes me feel good, therefore it's good. I don't like this person, I don't like what they say, it makes me feel bad, therefore they're bad. That's the level of logic at which the democratic person operates, and they have a series of beliefs which have been sort of socially approved by the demos, and these are held as correct because they're believed by most people, therefore they must be right. It's just the level of opinion. That's the second level. Then you have the oligarch or the plutocrat, which doesn't believe in opinion as such. They know there's a reality outside of just the world of opinion, but they master in controlling images, controlling, manipulating opinion, manipulating the doxa. And that's what their higher level of truth is really, to the degree that you can control that, you can really decide what's true. But they don't go, so, and they stop there. And at the higher level, on the good side, the first level is the democratic man, which believes in honor and justice, doing the right thing. So we can think of like the early founders of like the Roman Republic or, the Greek republics. And then you have the aristocratic men who arete being excellence. So, they deal in excellence, and that in self, self-analysis, knowledge, going beyond opinion in every respect, and loving truth, right? Looking for truth, even if it means getting rid of things that we like, right? We may love things or believe things that are not true. The aristocratic man is not afraid to go there to shatter his own illusions, and he knows that that's really the only way that you can shatter someone else's illusions in a loving way, is if you've gone through that process yourself, right? And that takes love at the end of the day. Without that, you won't get far. And at the highest level, you have the philosopher kings, who Plato says should rule, right, with the help of aristocratic men, but they're also tasked with creating new aristocratic men and philosopher kings. So they're kind of, they have to pay attention to the overall. So you have people like Socrates, like Plato. And so, being able to distinguish between these different levels, I think is useful, because the bottom half, it's all about appearances, and they'll never go beyond appearances. Some believe in controlling appearances, right? They're also the magicians, the oligarchs. The proto-oligarch is the magician or the sorcerer of an archaic civilization. And so if we want to go beyond that, we have to think about these other three levels, and that they exist, right? And that's why we want to study the kind of works, the classics, and have the kind of culture that promotes that kind of discernment. That's my spiel.
Nice. That was sick. I gotta read that. I need to elevate into that philosopher, man.
The Republic.
Yeah, the Republic. Right, and that's amazing. Paranoid. What's your thoughts on all that? I know you wicked smart.
That's a lot. I don't know which part. So I think in one of the opening, I don't know if it was part of the Republic or one of the other things that got added to it in the mass publications, but Plato says something about, like, don't even try and read this book until you're, I think, in your 40s or something. That always intimidated me because I tried reading it a few different times when I was growing up. And what David was talking about before too, about the different classes of society, that eventually leads to this idea of the philosopher king. But also that they had this form of government that was very theoretical, that all of those different groups would get together and collectively decide what everybody's role in society would be, how much power they would wield, how their daily lives would work out, and then have almost like a blind vote so that everyone would be assigned these roles. So you might vote on like how the king gets to live or how the pauper gets to live, but you might end up being assigned the pauper, or you might end up being assigned the king. Obviously, society isn't that simple, so they can't actually dole it out that way. But that was part of the philosophy between, or like behind how they actually wanted to construct that.
Yeah, and well, I would just say the thing about the Republic, it's not the last word. Like I have over here, Plato. That the Republic is a thought experiment. This is Plato's Laws, which is a much more mature and later work, and it's much more practical. So if we read Plato's later dialogues, it's like, okay, we've done all these different thought experiments, which offer all sorts of insights. But the Republic is not like a literal, we're going to make the Republic that way. There's a lot of thought experiments. And in the Laws, he kind of just starts laying out, you know, laws and how the government should actually be structured, bearing in mind that you have all these complexities and nuances that have been looked at in the Republic, the different kinds of men, the effect of the role of the poets who were the central image makers. So we're talking about image making and magicians controlling the imagery in modern times, that being like cybernetic feedback loops, Hollywood, mass media, social media. So the Republic sort of challenges us to think about all these things. But, Plato says things like, should we ban the poets, right? And people will take this stuff literally, like, yeah, Plato was a tyrant. He wanted to like control all the art. It's like a communist state. It's the proto-communist state. But even then, what the bad guys do if they can't destroy something, right? You can't really destroy the Republic or the ideas. You distort it if you can't destroy it. So you have all these Delphic interpretations of Plato where they'll just leave things out. Okay, so Plato did say that, but he was also playful. Like if you read the dialogues, he's kind of joking. He's challenging people to come up with an argument to refute him. And he says, hey, if you can offer a better example of why the poet should be allowed into the Republic, like what is the role of poetry? What is the role of art in an ideal Republic, such that it will not lead people astray, right? Such that it can be a path to goodness, truth, and beauty, and not one without the other, right? Because, okay, you can have beauty, right? You can have outward something that's very pleasing, but what if it conceals something darker that it is not actually true? If people emote with it and it makes them feel good, like a lot of pop songs. I think a pop song is, Plato called poems charms. He called them their charms, right? They have like a magical effect because they alter your state. You could be in the car, you're having a shitty day, or you're tired, you're driving to work, suddenly song comes on, last Friday night or whatever. I'm not Katy Perry or something, and all of a sudden your mood changes, right? Or some EDM comes on and your mood changes. So music, song, poetry have this power to radically to alter our states. And so Plato's saying, if you just allow this stuff to run amok, it's going to lead people down all sorts of rabbit holes, but also on all sorts of false paths. So how can poetry be a medium that leads to the good? That's a big question. Like that's a very complicated question, because the artist, he was saying, is an imitator. They're not talking about the direct thing, truth as such. They're presenting an image of something, but then even the image is not actually, there's another degree of separation. He gives like a cobbler. He makes shoes. Okay, the painter can paint a shoe, but he can paint a nice image of the shoe and it looks just like a shoe. But just because the painter can paint a shoe, does it mean he can make a shoe? No, of course not. So the poet or artist is an imitator one degree removed even from the cobbler, who is also an imitator, who is making a shoe based on his idea of a shoe, right? And he's able to construct a shoe. He has a techne, he has certain knowledge. So there are these 2 degrees of separation when you get to the question of art. And so that's how he's saying, how do you deal with that in the ideal republic? And that's why he puts out this challenge. He's being very cheeky. The bad guys will just take all that. They'll give you a literal reading of some section of it. And that's literally what just everyone will run with. So, and these are the Straussians as well. The Straussians, Peter Thiel, one of his big interviews, and he had a big essay, it was called The Straussian Moment. They are Straussians. The neocons were Straussians. Dick Cheney will blow up a building, will make people think that they're under attack. We'll use that as a basis to justify a war of aggression. They believe in using opinion, using the levers of power to manipulate people's perceptions in order to achieve their political goals. And they say that's what politics is. And so then they'll say, well, look at Plato, right? Plato is sort of deciding what images should be allowed, prohibiting some, giving people different myths. Plato has the myths about the soul. And so they're going to give a Straussian interpretation of Plato. And that's what dominates, or that's become very popular among alternative academic circles and in academic circles. Otherwise, they get like the Aristotelian view of Plato, where Aristotle was a commentator of Plato in many ways, and he was trying to refute a lot of Plato's core ideas, which people don't like to discuss today because they say they're friends and Aristotle was a student. The magicians, again, right? They're sort of just bunching things up together so people can't discern. And these are actually the central issues. Like, if these are at the heart of defining the struggle in Western civilization. And so you see these guys, they know that. Like, Peter Thiel is not stupid, right? He studied Strauss, he studied these thinkers who, these purveyors of these cryptic sort of esoteric versus exoteric interpretations of Plato. So Plato has this outward messaging, and then he has a secret message for people who can read between the lines. Gnostics say the same thing about the Bible, right? There's like the outward message for the masses, and then there's the secret message. And if you're an initiate, if you want power, you want to be with us, you want to be in a group, well, then you have to start believing certain things, right? Same mystery cult format.
Right.
They do it everywhere. It's annoying.
Right. And we gotta go into that a lot more over on the Patreon. So make sure to go to my Patreon and go watch that video. But I'll be releasing it here next week as well. How there's 2 different doctrines for these occultists, where you got one doctrine for the public and one for the initiates only, who get the secrets. That's amazing. That's amazing. I want to go back real quick to illuminaticomic.com. We are almost past the 34. That was the goal tonight. And I know we got more signups. And I want to give my cat some more drugs. Paranoid, did we get a couple of new names?
Yeah, we got Jan Hayerts got a VHS box. Thank you for that, Jan.
Oh yeah, Jim. Woo
And
woo.
then Spencer K signed up for the trading card combo.
Spencer. Oh yeah, my cat is very grateful. Get the cat the drugs. And we just need like one more sign up so we can get past the 33 vertebrae into the 34. David, what do you got on your agenda? Anything new coming out?
Yeah, I'm putting together, like I said, and I'll have to get going shortly. But yeah,
Yeah,
just
we'll wrap it up.
I mean, this was fun though. We gotta keep this is really good what you're doing, and I could watch that cat take LSD for a while. Actually, it's kind of fun. Um, the next one is magic, myth, and archaic mind control. So yeah, all these things that we've talked about. I'm gonna have some like it's gonna be a deep dive. So there's gonna be a lot of like hard quotes that go hard, and just some original sources, and then that's gonna open up to the secrets of the Renaissance. And I've been reading Selective Breeding and the Birth of Philosophy by the guy, one of the original popularizers of this alt-right sort of, based
The
movement. And Pepe the
pervert.
Frog stuff, Bronze Age pervert, as he
Right.
goes
We
by.
we went over it a little bit on the Patreon. Yeah.
Yeah, so the third piece is going to be on that. It's going to be something from like Bronze Age mindset to Peter Thiel, the Delphic perversion of Plato. So going into how the bad guys sort of pervert the real sort of classical, the real origins of Western civilization and the authentic ideas, and just plenty of examples of how they do that, which is like we've done tonight, right? Once we take a couple of examples of how these countercultures are created, how these fake movements are created, then you can start to see it, right? You have some experimental knowledge, if you will, of how these things work. And so you can smell it after. And the more people who can smell it, the better, right? For as Lincoln said, you can fool most of the people most of the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. So I feel we're at that kind of moment right now.
Nice, nice. And I got all of David's links down below. Go to his Twitter, go subscribe there, and go to the Substack. You don't have a YouTube channel, do you?
No, but we're making a commercial for the magazine with my buddy.
Okay.
So yeah, we're going to be putting Chain Muse is our literary journal, so really our literary outlet, and New Liar is our printed magazine. Because we want people to read, we want to encourage long form, right? Most of my stuff is long form; they're deep dives. Otherwise, I'm publishing poems, recordings. And so yeah, we have a pretty growing enterprise, and yeah, the next thing is doing more videos. We did a poetry film, but we're going to be doing more, and eventually a movie. So we're still working on that. But yeah, like now is the time to really put out, the real deal. Like I mean, like Hollywood, for example. I was reading a great article by Ted Gioia on the Honest Broker Substack, and he's just talking about how like the traditional Hollywood is dying. And if you look at the big companies like Disney and all these guys, they're tanking, right? Because they put out so much trash. Or there's the whole conspiracy with the Joker. Maybe you guys looked into that, that they did on purpose to ruin it because
Right.
they didn't like that a certain segment of the population was really there were certain themes in the first Joker that that resonated with the disenchanted generations in a way that they didn't like. So the theory is that
Wow.
they intentionally. I'll send you a fun discussion on that. They intentionally destroyed the new Joker and threw like $300 million down the drain. But just to
Oh,
say that, so
wow.
there's yeah, just to say there's like a new Hollywood, there's a new like more independent film studios, and so distribution has changed. So there's way more room for original sort of creations and productions, even in the film world, right? There's an openness. So yeah, we're looking at all that. And the idea being that it all kind of starts, it goes back to poetics. It goes back to, you know, the core art of image making, which is what Plato was looking at, and which throughout history, whether it's Homer's Iliads, Dante's comedy, what would Western civilization look like without Homer's epic poems, or Dante, or Shakespeare? It's not even, you can't measure that, right? It's on such a high qualitative level. And so these things, culture, the maxim in recent times has been politics is downstream from culture. But that's what Plato was really looking at with his Republic, with his polemic on the poets. And so we're operating we're mindful of these things, with the kind of stuff that we put out and the people that we're working with to build a solid stable of writers and thinkers who, will take up Plato's challenge and therefore, be aware of what the bad guys do to distort and pervert that. And like you guys, the Illuminati will not be buying us out anytime soon. God willing.
Yeah. And that's what I like about everybody go there, get that long form content. It keeps you wicked smart. Go learn about David, go listen to his podcast, go read his articles and books. Also go to the Illuminati comic. This is long form content, so it's a long podcast. It's not just a clip or a meme to keep y'all dumbed down. This is going into it much deeply and getting the physical copy of these books, getting the physical copy of the Illuminati comic. Please click that link below. Only need like one more person. Let's get past that 34,000 mark tonight. Paranoid, you got anything else to say before we sign out of here?
No, it was a pleasure listening to all your takes on philosophy and classical liberal arts, and it was nice meeting you, David.
Yeah, no, it was great jamming with you guys. Love what you guys are doing. Love the cat. I wish your cat well as well. Shout out. And drink that cranberry juice. And yeah, we'll be in touch.
Yes. Yeah,
I look forward to seeing all this stuff you're putting out, man. It's very impressive. God bless.
God bless. Thank you, everybody. Make sure to smash that like button. It's Donut. Much love. And God bless you. Yo, what up? It's Donut, and you tuning into all your Illuminati news. Get your copy of the Illuminati comic. IlluminatiComic.com. You know you want it. Get early bird access to massive discounts and exclusive gifts. Dropping worldwide. Learn the secrets of the Illuminati. Access the secrets. Join the Illuminati Yacht Club. Get the Donut VHS box and join the street team. Click the link below. Limited time only. Oh, what up? It's Donut. The Illuminati comic dropped worldwide. Get your Illuminati comic today about the Bavarian Illuminati exposing the infamous secret society. It's a chit track Illuminati comic. Make sure to go back this project. We were fully funded in 3 minutes.
Learn about the full history of the Bavarian Illuminati. Adam Weishaupt, Alumbrados, Jesuits, Rosicrucians, Freemasons, and more.
We got early bird access today only. If you subscribe today, you get a massive discount anywhere in the world. The digital deluxe tier. Get the digital copy plus an add-on private video presentation. Get the black and white chit track Illuminati comic or get it in color. I mean, I would get it in color because this is banging. Learn all the secrets. And the Donut VHS box. Get the early bird special. This ends today. These sell out so quickly. Very, very popular. And it's the first time ever we're doing them worldwide with the Illuminati comic. Massive discounts today only. Click that link below. The Illuminati street team. Become part of the street team. Get a bunch of these comics and slang them. You can make a bunch of money. You can make your money back and profit. If you got a store, you can sell them out of your store or just hand them out, leave them at the library. Join the Illuminati street team. Or If you a big baller like that and you want to be part of the Illuminati Yacht Club, that's for the big ballers right there who want to join the Illuminati Yacht Club. I mean, that's that official, like a referee whistle pledge right there. So click that link below. This is the Illuminati comic. Sign up right now. Reserve your spot. Much love and God bless you.
That's right, it's the Illuminati comic from Donut and Paranoid American. Get yours now at illuminaticomic.com.